You didn't read that title wrong. Force of Will, gone. Blood Moon, banned. Underworld Breach and Dark Ritual, see ya. This isn't a light tweak. This is a format-defining moment, and Duel Commander may never look the same. Let's break it down. What it means, why it happened, and what happens next. Welcome to Manifest Dread MTG. All right, welcome back, folks. We got Bo and Drew here from Manifest Dread MTG.
Going to have a nice fireside chat about the BnR now that hopefully tempers and feelings have kind of cooled down a little bit, and what we think about it and where we think the meta is going to go and what we feel about the bans.
So let's start off with Force of Will.
Force of Will.
I know you and I have somewhat differing opinions, but...
So I guess let's start with this. Let's start with the stated goal of why Force of Will was banned. They said they banned Force of Will because they did not... It become too much of a protective spell for decks like Aragorn or Glarb or Urtai, right? So you were able to get your Parallax down, and then you could protect it with your Urtai, or you could play Aragorn out onto a naked board and not have to worry about anything because you had force backup. So they were going to be required to have not one but two pieces of interaction. So I understand that. I'm of the mindset, though, that when you ban iconic cards like Force of Will, it chips away at the veneer of the format a little bit. It becomes a little bit harder to sell to a boomer in Magic, and that's not necessarily who this format is solely catered to. So I personally would not have banned Force of Will. I understand why it was banned, but I would not have banned it. I think Force of Will is a fine Magic card. It's 1 in 99. There is a real cost to it. People like to say, well, it's free. It's not free. You have to discard a card and you have to lose a life. That's not nothing. So I would have kept Force of Will. I understand the concerns with it, but I like Force of Will. I'm biased. I think it should still be in the format. Having said that, it's one card out of 99. People are losing their minds over this. I don't particularly agree with that. If you weren't playing Misdirection, play Misdirection. Drew, what do you think about it?
I'm not partial to one side or the other. I see it the same way that you do. It's one card in 99. If it's gone, so be it. We can adapt. There are plenty of cards. Thwart, Foil, Misdirection. Not nearly as great, but they're quote-unquote free spells. You know, the thing with Force is I always like to see it as a protective spell. You know, when somebody is doing something super degenerate, we have Force of Will to be able to protect from them being able to do that. And stifling a bunch of those combos.
I think the big thing with me is that people would have rightfully said, well, it's a safety valve, but it's not, because it's not the same as Legacy and Vintage where you're playing 4 copies of it and some number of negation too, right? You're playing 1. And sometimes it is more of a protective spell, but that to me does not necessarily mean it negates Force's origins, right?
Right.
There's nowhere in the card that says, or the flavor text says, this is solely for the stack to be used defensively. There's nothing wrong with using it, as a defensive spell. There's nothing wrong with it. The other thing too is that creature power creep. Everything has kicker, multi-kicker. They just don't say that on there anymore. So that's my take. Any closing thoughts on Force?
No, yeah, I mean, Delver has always been a deck in Legacy that has just been, protect your threat, and that's what Force of Will was doing in Legacy, and it's kind of what it's been doing in some of the Duel Commander games with like Aragorn and whatnot. You're just protecting your threat, and sometimes that tempo gain is just so advantageous that it puts you so far behind, it's hard to catch up. It feels bad, but again, I'm not opposed to it being banned. I'm not opposed to it being unbanned. We have plenty of other cards to work with.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset, I hate to see it go. I don't think it's format breaking. I understand people's concerns, and I don't like that it chips away at the veneer. So just to wrap this up, would you give it being banned a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I'll start first. I give it a thumbs down. I think it's an overstep and an overreach.
Does feel a little bit like an overreach. I say let's try it.
Okay.
I think there's no shame in trying it out.
Let's put it this way. I play blue decks. It's not going to stop me from playing Duel Commander or playing
blue decks.
Blue decks. So I'm fine with it. All right, moving right along. What's up next?
We got Blood Moon.
Blood Moon.
I know you played a little bit in Duel.
Yeah. All right. Blood Moon. So again, the reason it is my understanding after having listened to people that are close to the rules committee talk about that they banned Blood Moon because of Yoshi Bruce, because it was just going to be too powerful now that Force of Will was gone. And I'm of the mindset, and they also brought up play experience. I'm of the mindset that this is Duel Commander. You know immediately what your opponent is playing face up, right? If they're playing Yoshi Bruce, they probably have Magus. They definitely have Blood Moon. If you're playing against Deadpool, same situation. If you're playing against Lear or Urtai, they likely have Harbinger of the Seas. So that responsibility is incumbent on you to mulligan appropriately or fetch appropriately to protect yourself. And I'm of the mindset that Blood Moon should exist, even though I understand people don't, not all people, but some people don't like the player experience that it promotes, but it deals with greedy mana bases and one of the most hard to interact piece permanents on the battlefield in a land, specifically when we're in a format that does not have Strip Mine and we don't have Wasteland. Drew, what's your take?
I'm going to say I'm not sad to see Blood Moon go. I've been locked out by Blood Moon plenty of times. It can turn off the game. I do think that there is some argument for being able to aggressively fetch for your basics. I've always been somebody who fetches aggressively for their basics in every format that I play, and so I tend to not get as punished. However, sometimes it is hard to mulligan for the right fetch lands to be able to play around it. You know,
yes, we're in 100 singleton, 99 singleton format.
99 singleton, you've got roughly 10 fetches, and sometimes those fetches can fetch the same color land and just screw you over. So it gets a little weird. It isn't as bad when you're playing a deck that includes red. However, if you're a deck that doesn't, you can get completely screwed over. I do agree with, you know, some of their sentiment that even some of the 2-color decks can get hosed by Blood Moon just because you have so many utility lands that it actually just also locks you out of the game. I'm not opposed to seeing Blood Moon ban. I'm glad that they didn't touch Harbinger and Magus of the Moon. I think that those are fine, way more easily interactable. And I'm happy with it.
Before we give a thumbs up or thumbs down, I just want to put one last little piece in there. I feel this really kicks the mono red decks down even more so. So the Zergos and Kellens of the world were already not necessarily in a terrible place, but not in as powerful of a place as they once were. And this was a tool that they had, and it's no longer at their disposal. So I would give this a thumbs down, personally. And I hate to see Blood Moon go. That's the boomer in me, having it come out in the dark, the first set that I started with. There's a lot of nostalgia there. And again, as previously stated with Force of Will, it chips away at the veneer of this is, and it's never been stated officially from the RC or, you know, people in the Duel Commander space. But when I try and sell people on this format, I often say it's like Vintage Cube, or it's like Legacy Cube, or it's like some, amalgamation of the two. Mm-hmm. And that's where I personally stand. So I give it a thumbs down. Where do you stand, Drew?
I'm all for it. I despise this card. I'm happy it's gone, but I don't play decks that play Blood Moon, so.
Well, there you have it. There's too much toxic positivity in this in this conversation in Fireside Chat. All right.
We got Underworld Breach next. Thoughts, feelings, opinions, threats?
Card's always been broken. Card has never ceased to not be broken. At least with Yogg-Will, it exiles itself after the first time.
Yeah.
I'm not sad to see this card go. I understand that they perceived that Rog Tev was too strong and we had to kick it down a little bit. And so, you know, again, from what I leered from people who are close to the RC, they were considering banning Rog, which I don't think you should do, because Rog also opens up Grixis Ninja style decks, which, while they're not a large part of the meta, they're still a part of the meta. There's plenty of stuff that you can do with Rog. So you could ban Rog, you could ban DT. Again, DT's a format defining card. What are we doing? Like, again, chipping away at the veneer of what this format is and isn't. So don't touch DT. You have Calling the Weak, you have Dark Ritual, and you have Underworld Breach, and you have Yogg-Will. And if you have to ban one of Yogg-Will or Underworld Breach, it should be Breach, because Breach is repeatable and abusable. I've never liked this card. I've always hated the play patterns of this card. It's a big reason I don't like CDH personally, outside of like beer and chips CDH with my friends. You know what I mean? Like, that's my take on it. Yeah. Where are you at on this?
You know, I don't think this card has ever been used in a fair way. This has always been an enabler for some form of storm or broken combo type of thing. Not sad to see it go. Sure, the downside is it's an enchantment, so it's more interactable with, but like you said, the fact that it doesn't exile the card after you cast it, some might see as a cool little feature of the card, but honestly, you just recast the same card, Bolt or Grape Shot or, whatever the card ends up being, just let's get it gone. I'm not sad to see this card go.
So are you giving it a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
I'm all for this. I give it a thumbs up that this got banned.
I also give it a thumbs up that this got banned. And I feel like this could have been banned even sooner, quite frankly. But Rogtev wasn't at the breaking point that the RC feels it was at this juncture. All right.
And Rogtev is, a fairly skill-intensive deck.
Yes.
There is that.
People are already putting dirt on Rogtev's plot. And I don't believe that at all. The deck is still strong.
It is.
Yes, it got two pieces clipped from it, but it's still strong. You know what I mean? Like, I always felt that the breach lines were some of the weakest lines in the deck.
And it's, in this case, one card. We'll see in a second that Dark Ritual is also gone. 2 cards out of the deck. Okay, we can find replacements.
Yes. So that brings us to the final ban.
Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual. How do you feel about this?
This one I'm also a little conflicted on. I have not cast Dark Ritual a whole lot in my career. I've never been a Dark Ritual gamer. I've had it cast a lot against me, and it tends to seem like it's doing this acceleration thing, or leading to some form of degeneracy in combo and whatnot. The games where somebody has a Dark Ritual and can turn one Dark Rit into some potent threat, or
like a Baraggoyf?
Baraggoyf, Necropotence.
Right.
Any of these things, it definitely feels like you fall super far behind. And I get that they are not a huge fan of the fast mana and trying to slow the game down. Like I said, I'm a little conflicted on this. What are your thoughts?
I think, again, this is another card that chips away at the veneer and the identity of the format. I understand that by banning Dark Ritual, they had to ban Force of Will. Because in the fair decks, Dark Rit is often, you're able to power out a threat like a Baraggoyf, or you're able to power out, a Bob and a Stalactite Stalker, or whatever, you know what I'm saying, in that capacity. So I get it. And it was most abused in Rogtev. But again, I would have let... I'm on the fence about this one. Like, I understand no fast mana, or fast mana has to come at a cost. And this is a cost, right? You're losing a card. And what's more powerful? Dark Ritual across, and what's better for the format as a whole? Dark Ritual being able to be played across multiple decks, or Dark Ritual, or Calling the Weak staying in Rogtev. Which one's more powerful?
Right. And which is the deck that you're actually trying to nerf?
I would give this a slight thumbs down for the same reasons of chipping away at the veneer of established identity of a format, and it hurts the fair decks that were using it in an unfair way, I guess, if that makes sense. The Cecils and Mono Black, Aristocrats decks of the world that, yeah, sure, they're not top of the meta, but like they exist and people like playing them.
Yeah, I'm not going to be sad to, not face down a turboed out Shieldred or Deadpool or anything along those lines. I'm not going to miss that.
Sure.
So some good things, but again, I'm giving this a little bit of a thumbs down.
Okay. So just to recap, Force of Will, I'm giving it a thumbs down. You're at?
I'm willing to say let's try it. Let's
Okay.
see. I'm sure we can find a replacement or do something different.
All right. Blood Moon, I'm giving that a thumbs down.
I'm giving that a straight thumbs up.
Okay. Underworld Breach, 2 thumbs up from both of us. The card's degeneracy incarnate. And then Dark Ritual, I'm giving it a thumbs down.
Yeah, we're both a little on the fence, leaning a little bit more on the thumbs down.
Now, having said all that, this isn't making me pick up my decks and walk away from the format. The RC listens, the community directors across the world listen, and your voices can and will be heard. Now, if people make a big enough fuss, maybe Force of Will come back. Probably not Blood Moon, because they're like, we're finally rid of this. But we will see. I'm at
the very least, let's try and see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see how the meta adapts. This is, in most cases, 1 card out of 100. We're playing a singleton format. You're not always going to see these cards. Most of the time, you don't even see these cards in your matches. Like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's my take as well. Let's see what happens. I understand people are passionate about it. That's a wonderful thing. Let's try and channel that passion into growing our community at large. Let's all commit to doing that. If you losing Force of Will or Blood Moon or Dark Ritual was that important to you playing your deck, I don't know what to say outside of I'm sorry that you felt that way and this is happening to you, but the sun's going to rise tomorrow.
It's one card, not like the other formats where you get 4.
Right.
So things are going to be fine. We keep exploring. That's the glory of this format. There's a lot to explore.
Yes, I agree. So I would rate. I'll close with this for myself. I feel that the RC overstepped by a magnitude of 2. I think that they should have left Blood Moon and Force of Will, but I understand the other 2 bans, and I'm okay. I'm 100% okay with one of them, and I get getting rid of fast mana in the form of burst mana with Dark Ritual. I'll leave it to you to close this out.
Yeah, and my closing thoughts are, it's a little weird. It was a big shock. It's going to be a big change up, but honestly, I more than anything welcome the change. I say, let's try it out. This isn't going to be something that chases me away or us away. Let's see what happens. We make these changes to make the game healthier. And so overall, I'm for this change, and we'll see what ends up happening in the near future.
All right. Well, this is Bo, and that's Drew, and this is Manifestor at MTG. Thank you so much for listening.